Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. I'm your host, Bonnie Squires. We're coming to you from Radnor Studio 21 in beautiful downtown Wayne. We like to expose people to heads of charities, of important institutions, the arts, culture, whatever, politics. We want you to know what's going on and who's making a difference in our daily lives. And today we have with us an old friend, Barbara Shaiman, who's had a lot of exciting projects, and she wants to talk about her latest project, and she just published a book called Live Your Legacy Now. Barbara, welcome to Bonnie's Beat.
Bonnie, it is a pleasure. We've been doing our talking for many, many years.
Many years.
And it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Now talk about what this is. When did you start Live Your Legacy, and what is it about?
Well, I actually started writing an ethical will. I wanted my children and grandchildren to know my core values, what I'm about, what was important to me. It's not a binding document the way a will is, but I felt that it was a very important piece of work to put together so people have an understanding of who you really are. Sometimes we make assumptions that people really know what makes our heart sing and what's important to us, and they just might not. So I really recommend to all of your viewers that they take a stab at doing an ethical will and really sharing those important core values and what they did in their life that they're proud of and what they want friends and family to know about them. And my husband was an estate planning lawyer, Larry Shaiman, and he looked at
Your late husband.
My late husband, yes. I was widowed 8 years ago. And he looked at the manuscript and he said to me, you know, this is bigger than our family. Keep the personal parts, and that could be shared, obviously, but why don't you write this for people at large? Because it's very helpful for them to understand what you're trying to say. And he said, especially for my clients, sometimes they get so caught up in their money that they forget about passing on their values with their money. And this could be helpful for them to sit with their children and grandchildren and explain, why are they generous? What are they generous to? How did they get the money that they got? What does it mean to them? What are their principles and core values about? So I wrote this book, and the title came to me one day. You know, when you talk about legacy, Bonnie, you talk about you leave a legacy.
Yes.
And it dawned on me that I don't just want to leave it, I want to live it, I want to model it, I want to feel good about who I am, and I really want to think about what is the meaning and purpose in my life, and how can I get involved in activities and projects that create social change. I feel that it's very important for all of us to create social change in our lifetime on any level that we can. We're living in frightening times. There's a lot of terrorism and violence in our society.
Daily.
Daily.
It's tough to turn on television or pick up a newspaper or listen to the radio because it's nothing but gloom and doom some days, it seems.
And I think people feel powerless. And I wrote this book to empower people to think about what can they do in their own little corner of the world to make a difference in someone else's life and to add great meaning and purpose. I've gotten very involved in the positive aging movement and go to and present at a lot of conferences.
Positive aging. I love the way that sounds.
Doesn't it? I mean, you get better and better as you go on. But the one thing that is stressed by all the thought leaders in that field is you have to have meaning and purpose. That as you grow older, you don't want to isolate, you want to stay engaged, you need your health obviously, but if you have meaning and purpose in your life, you will be healthier and you will live longer. So to me, this is a no-brainer. I know that when I'm involved in a project that really excites me and I feel I'm doing something that I'm proud of, or that my mother, may she rest in peace, would be proud of me, it just energizes me. So even within any period of your life, whether you're a 12-year-old in my Champions of Caring program or a 70 or 80-year-old, you can really enrich your life dramatically by thinking about what are my passions, what are my interests, what are my skills, and can I create social change around an issue that's important to me, and whom can I involve, and how can I pass this on from one generation to the next.
Now, I have to say, as much as I love Barbara, this is the first that I'm seeing her new book. She thought I had a copy of it, but she walked in the door and handed it to me. I'm looking at the first page, which is testimonials. I don't know how she had managed this, but she's got testimonials from Andrea Mitchell from NBC News, Senator Harris Wofford, who's from these parts, Ed Rendell, the former governor of Pennsylvania, and the founders of Autism Speaks. How did you get these testimonials for your book?
I know these people. I've been very blessed to be a good networker, like you are, Bonnie. And I've met wonderful people over my life, and I feel so lucky because the friendships we make in life are the most important things in life. And they were gracious enough to agree to write testimonials for the book.
Well, you've got 10 steps to find your passion and change the world. Do you want to give some of those steps away?
Sure. I think the core of this, though, is really about understanding what you care about. So the hardest piece of this whole project is to identify what you're passionate about. And I'll give you an example with one of my champions of caring. I'd like you to meet Raul. Raul was 15 years old when I met him. And I did this activity with about 100 students at Drexel. These were students from inner city Philadelphia, the Main Line, Muslims, Jews, Christians, all coming together because they all had one thing in common. They wanted to make the world a better place. And the first question I asked the group is, what are you passionate about? What do you love to do? What excites you so much when you do it? And Raul raises his hand and he says, salsa dancing. I said, really, Raul? He says, oh, when I'm salsa dancing, the world is wonderful. Then I asked the second question, what makes you angry? What issue really upsets you and makes you want to scream? He said, you know, when old white people come down the street and they see Latino and African American boys, they don't make eye contact with us and they cross the street. I said, Raul, do you think you could take your joy of salsa dancing and your anger about this prejudice and create a project around it? And he looked at me and he said, you know, all those old white people go into a senior center right near my school. What if I went in there and I taught them the salsa? I said, Raul, that's great. He goes, and he was lighting up. He said, I love this project because it'll teach them that we're good kids and maybe they'll change their attitudes. Well, I looked at him and I said, you know, Raul, this is a great idea, but I want you to have a project that has impact. You can do this one time, and that's okay, and go in there and teach them the salsa, or you can think about, can you do more than one time and really get to know these people, bond with them, and make a difference. And I handed him the book, and I said, you know, Raul, why don't you think about what is your mission here? What are your goals? What are your objectives? Who could help you with this project? Do you need a budget to make this project happen? What's the timeline on this? Can you write a letter of intent to your principal and to the CEO of the senior center explaining your goals? And Bonnie's body language was like, lady, you're killing me. It was overwhelming. I said, don't worry, it's all in here. And you'll find a teacher at your school to help you, and we meet once a month. We'll do it together. So let me tell you what unfolded. He recruited 20 of his friends, African American and Latino boys. They wrote a letter to the principal and the CEO of the senior center. They taught each other how to dance the salsa because they knew that dancing and teaching someone how to dance were two different skills. They then went in and made an appointment and started teaching 70, 80, and 90-year-olds the salsa. And they had such a great time that the seniors then taught them this old fogey dance, he said, called the jitterbug. And so it began. And then they took out of the portfolio that I gave them a lesson on how to do an oral history project. And they started asking the seniors, were you ever bullied? How did you feel about that? Did you ever bully someone? How did you feel when you did that? What do you feel prejudice right now? And the video teacher came and took videos of these different conversations. Then he and the 20 boys got in front of their entire school to share how they're changing attitudes in Philadelphia.
That's fantastic.
And it was such a beautiful story because their grades went up, their skill sets went up. You know, you talked about Ed Rendell. One day Raoul said to me, you know, Miss Barber, you're teaching me networking. I wonder if I did networking right. I said, what do you mean? He said, you know, last week I went to Harrisburg. I saw Governor Rendell. I went up to him. I looked him in the eyes. I shook his hand. I said, I know you're an honorary chairman of Champions of Caring. Can you help us raise money? I said, Raoul, that was such great networking. You can have my job. But I use the Raoul story because when I speak, I'll frequently say to people, what is your salsa? What lights you up? And what is an issue that is of grave concern to you? Because if you tell people that they must do something, it might not be their interest. But if they can choose what they'd like to do and what issue they would like to address, that's really the core piece of living your legacy. And then creating these goals and objectives and reflecting on, is this working? What is not working? What do I need to tweak? Who needs to be working on this with me? Could it be a family grouping, a grandparents, parents and children? Could it be colleagues at work doing this together? Could it evolve in your faith-based community? So there's so many different ways that you can live your legacy with people that are like-minded, and that you create projects that address authentic needs and really give you great meaning and purpose in your own life. And if I would like to say to your viewers, if you can make it multi-generational, then it's really very, very rich, because then we're passing on our values from one generation to the next.
You've mentioned your caring program several times. I think you need to explain exactly what it is that you did, how you got the money for it, and so on.
Well, I'd like to share with you that my parents were Holocaust survivors. My mother was the sole survivor of a family of 65 people and was incarcerated in Auschwitz and several other death camps. And my father worked for Oskar Schindler. And this family history really shaped who I was. In 1989, I was running a national executive search firm, recruiting senior-level healthcare executives and physicians. And my mother announced at an international gathering of Holocaust survivors right here in Philadelphia, we were marching from the Bellevue Hotel to the Liberty Bell, and she looked at me and my brother and said, I want to take you back. I need to tell you the story, and I'd like you to videotape my story and Dad's story so our family will always remember. This is before Steven Spielberg did the Shoah Foundation tapes. And we didn't think it was a great idea because we thought it would be very traumatic for my mom and Dad to go back and relive the atrocities. And my mother insisted, and she got close to 100 Holocaust survivors together and their children, and we all went to Poland. And I need to share a story with you, Bonnie. My mother used to compulsively brush her teeth. It drove my brother and me and my dad insane. And we would scream, come on, Mom, why are you brushing your teeth all the time? Even in dementia, she would wake up her caretaker at 2 a.m., 5 a.m. to have her take her to the bathroom to brush her teeth. She never explained this. So we're walking into Auschwitz, Bonnie, and my mother turns to me and says, I was 19 years old when I got here. I had lost everything. They'd taken my family, every worldly possession. I had hid a toothbrush in my dress. It was the last vestige of my humanity. And even though I didn't have water or toothpaste, I would just take the bristles and go over my teeth. It made me feel human. Well, I had such a visceral reaction to think that my mother at 19 had one possession left, and it was a toothbrush, and it was taken from her. I couldn't breathe. My heart was palpitating. I rushed out of the museum and went into the courtyard. And I couldn't stop crying. I was so upset. And standing right near me were a group of boys, probably 15 and 16-year-olds, laughing. clowning around. And I thought to myself, how can someone clown around at Auschwitz? This is not Disney World. This is a killing place. And I heard them speaking German, and I was born in Germany after the war, so I speak German. And I went up to them and said, how are you behaving? Do you understand where you are? And they laughed at me. My life changed forever. I thought to myself, I can't live in a world where there's no decorum, where there's no respect. What if I went back to Philly and created an entity that promoted caring behaviors, kindness, caring, compassion, respect? And this name came to me, Champions of Caring. We're so focused on academics, on athletics, that we frequently forget the heart. And I came up with this idea, if we could work with teachers in schools here to promote cultures of caring and kindness in classrooms, and to teach young people to become social activists, that maybe I could take a small step in making my community better. And I'll tell you a very lovely story about generosity. As I was creating the ideas behind Champions of Caring, the goals, the objectives, the mission, and so forth, a friend of mine invited me to her 55th birthday party. And it was a luncheon at the hotel here in Philadelphia. And we came into the room, and there was an envelope on each plate. The first paragraph was very individual, about the friendship she had to these 15 women. And the second paragraph said, in honor of my 55th birthday, I'm gifting you $5,500.
For everybody at
For everybody at the lunch.
How many were at the lunch?
15 people.
Oh my goodness.
She said, I had a very good year this year, and I think this would make my birthday very meaningful. Please contribute to charities of your choice or one you would like to create. Do not consider the ones I like. You know which they are. Make it your own. And please do your due diligence and come back in 2 weeks and report back. Well, in the interim, I had written to Steven Spielberg, and you mentioned Autism Speaks. My dear friends Bob and Suzanne Wright took the letter that I wrote to Spielberg and handed it to him and read it to him out loud. And he was considering to give me money, which he did, from his Righteous Persons Foundation. And I came in to the luncheon 2 weeks later, and I said, oh my God, I just met Steven Spielberg and he's giving me money, and this is what I'm trying to do in Philadelphia. And I told them the whole story, and I was the last to speak, and the women had already designated where their money was going to go. 3 or 4 of the other women changed their mind and said, we're giving it to Barbara so she can really get a jump start on starting the organization. And I'm so indebted. And Bonnie, I tell this story to kids. You know why? If you have $1, if everyone chips in, it's the holiday season, $1, whatever you can afford, and gets a gift for someone who is not fortunate enough to have a gift, or donates to a charity that resonates for them, we can change the world. This time of year, we spend so much money frequently on gifts that are not necessary. Why not do something as a family to help someone in need, or to take a group of young people together and say, you are empowered to make someone have a smile on their face today. So I love when I was sharing the story with youth in Philadelphia, they would all say, can we bring in money tomorrow and figure out a charity and who to give it to? Because everyone can have this sense of dignity by just reaching into their heart and making someone else's life better.
It's empowering people as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to feel empowered.
I want to put information on the screen so that people can access Barbara Shaiman and her wonderful book, Live Your Legacy Now. Her website is www.embraceyourlegacynow.com. The phone number is 610-747-0166. And the book is a how-to get started, reinventing yourself.
And it's for every age group. And I give speeches. I give a lot of speeches on college campuses. I speak in the wealth management world to corporations, because everyone can be involved in any way that they'd like to make a difference in this world.
It's really interesting. Oh, I love this chapter heading. Compose your life backwards. What do I want to accomplish?
So let me respond to that. When I was getting my master's degree, a professor came in one day and said, "It's your 90th birthday. Write down the words you would want someone to toast you and describe you with." And I thought, 90? I have no idea. And he said, "No, you have to do the activity." And then he looked at the class and said, "Life is a journey. If you were running a business, you would have a strategic plan. Why don't you have a strategic plan for your own life? What is your end goal? What would you want people to say about you? And if you think you're on that route right now, great, keep going. If you're not, take a twist in the road and think about what you'd like to be doing. Because if you think about the end result while you're living your life, you will live a life that is more meaningful to you." So I encourage your viewers to think about what's the toast for their 90th birthday. And I don't care how old they are today. You can change the trajectory of your life by stepping into your heart and really creating projects that will enhance your life and give you great meaning. And that's what I like to speak about and inspire people to think about.
You're such an upbeat person. You've outlived 2 of your husbands. And yet, you're always bubbly, you're always optimistic, you're always taking on a new challenge. Where do you find the strength to do that?
Well, I've only outlived one. The other one is still alive, but we're divorced. So I wanted to set that straight in case he's watching this show.
Okay. We don't wish him ill.
No, we don't at all. He's the father of my children and grandfather of my children, and I wish him only well. I learned it from my mother. My mother in Auschwitz told me that how she kept her strength and resiliency going was she would fantasize about holidays. When she was starving, she would think about Hanukkah or Passover Seder and think, one day if I survive this atrocity, I will have my own family and I will create these holiday celebrations and enjoy life to the fullest. Her favorite quote was, "The sun came out for me even after Auschwitz. It will always come out for you. You have to be optimistic." So she taught me about resiliency. I learned that life can be very hard. I was born into a family where 65 people I never met. I have 2 cousins. I had a grandmother, my mother, my father, my brother, my grandmother, and several cousins. That was my entire family. But the Holocaust community that I grew up in the Washington Heights area of New York City, became my family. And I learned from all of them that life is a gift. You have to enjoy it. And when things get tough, you feel the pain, but then you keep moving forward because you don't get the days back. So, you know, when I've had tragedy in my life, I've really felt that pain, but then said, now what can I do for something else, for someone else? And I'll tell you something, Bonnie, I started writing this book when my husband was diagnosed with cancer and was dying. My mother was dying, my father was dying, and I had a stepdaughter who died. Oh. And the way I got through all of this was to write the books. I wrote 2 books. And that gave me a good feeling that life can still go on and I can still do something to hopefully help myself and maybe help other people as well.
Now, how do people get copies of the book?
Amazon.
Amazon?
It's on Amazon, yeah.
It's called Live Your Legacy Now. Here we go. By Barbara Shaiman. Barbara Greenspan Shaiman. Is Greenspan your maiden name?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And 10 simple steps to find your passion and change the world. I'm glad you put Champions of Caring on the front cover as well.
Well, I see this as cradle to grave. The Raoul story touches me so deeply because here's a 15-year-old who created such a wonderful feeling between 2 disparate groups. And yet there are 80-year-olds and 60-year-olds and 40-year-olds who are doing the work as well and creating projects. If they're passionate about their knitting, I have a friend who was knitting Afghans with her mother and her friends and giving these to women in shelters who never got gifts.
Fantastic.
So because it was around their passion and a group that needed to have something that they could not access on their own. So the key is, what's in your heart? What can you do that you enjoy and give some pleasure to someone else or address a social issue that's important to you. And at this holiday season, I think it's the greatest gift. What you can give to someone else enriches your life tremendously.
If you could wave a wand, what would you change about American society today?
I am very concerned about the hate speech that I hear around me. I think of what my parents went through, where different groups were labeled in negative ways. And I think what I'm seeing affecting young people particularly, I'm sure you've been reading this as well. In one school they had white water fountain, black water fountain. We don't want to go back. Oh, it was terrible. We don't, and you know what's happening with Muslims and how they're being deprecated. There's so much hate, and I was so upset with the event at Mangiano's recently when the alt-right came, and at the end they heiled, you know, they put up their hands to heil Trump, and it just brings back images of horror, particularly, I think, for Holocaust survivors. And it's frightening that in 2016, almost 2017, this hate is coming out again. I want a society where people care about each other, respect each other, learn from each other. We need safety in the world. So every time I think any group is denigrated, we all go lower. I think we need to care more. And I'm very frightened about the hate speech that I'm seeing around me right now.
I like what Michelle Obama said, and when she was interviewed recently by Oprah Winfrey, they went over it again. If they go low,
we go high.
Go high.
I
Which
agree.
I thought was a wonderful motto.
It is, because we don't want to stoop to our basest level.
Yeah.
We want to elevate ourselves. And as long as we respect each other, we savor the differences. It's a good thing to be different. We learn from each other.
We need to respect the differences.
Absolutely.
And not call people names like capos.
No, it's such a frightening thing to me. And I think if we can all come together and for this holiday say, each of us is going to work towards that goal, to just reach out to someone who's different and make them feel welcome. Because each of us were immigrants from somewhere.
Exactly.
And we came to this country and we contributed to this country. I'm so proud to be an American. The proudest day of my life was when I became an American citizen. I was a little girl, but I remember to this day when the judge said, "So can you be the President of the United States?" And I giggled and I said, "No, I'm a girl, but I wish I could." Of course I couldn't because I wasn't born in this country, nor is it realistic. But this country offers us so much.
It might have been a woman president.
Yes.
And it still might be.
And I hope
in
it
the
will.
Near future.
Absolutely. But this is the greatest country on earth, and each of us needs to contribute to keep us high and to keep us in a society that respects and cares about one another. That's the secret, I think, to living a legacy and really having a rich life as a society.
Well, our guest today has been Barbara Shaiman, the author of Live Your Legacy Now. And we'll have Barbara back again for a progress report. And thank you, Barbara, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you, Bonnie. Happy New Year.